What you're about to hear might just change everything you thought you knew about the Indiana Fever this season. And if you're a Fever fan, you need to stick around because what happened in the locker room before Friday night's game against Minnesota is something that will give you chills. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we're covering every single moment of this wild WNBA season. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Picture this scene at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Indiana Fever players walk into the arena, but something's different. Every single player, every coach, they're all wearing the same t-shirt. And on the front, 3 words that sent shockwaves through the WNBA community: MVP Kelsey Mitchell. This wasn't some team-mandated uniform. This was pure, raw emotion from teammates who wanted the world to know exactly who's been carrying this injury-decimated roster on her back. Kelsey Mitchell had no idea it was coming. When she saw her teammates wearing those shirts, the woman who's been the definition of toughness all season long almost broke down right there in the tunnel. But here's where it gets even more intense. This gesture wasn't just about one game or one moment. This was about a player who's been through everything the WNBA can throw at you, who's watched superstars come and go, and who's still standing, still fighting, still dropping 27 points against the best defensive team in the entire league. Let me paint you a picture of what Mitchell has been dealing with. Caitlin Clark, out since July 15th with that mysterious groin injury that just won't heal. Sophie Cunningham, done for the season with a torn MCL that happened in the most heartbreaking way possible. Sydney Colson, season over with a torn achy. Ari McDonald, out with a broken foot. The Fever's injury report looks like something out of a medical drama. And through it all, one player has refused to let this team sink. Mitchell dropped 38 points just 5 nights before this Minnesota game, leading the Fever back from a 21-point deficit to beat Connecticut in overtime. The WNBA named her Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Her teammates started calling her their MVP, and on Friday night, they made sure everyone in that arena knew it. But here's what nobody's talking about. While Mitchell was putting up 27 points and 5 assists against the league's #1 defense, the Fever were simultaneously watching their season slip through their fingers in the most agonizing way possible. They led at halftime. They were right there with the best team in the WNBA. And then the third quarter happened, 32-17. That was the score in the third quarter alone. The Minnesota Lynx didn't just win that quarter, they absolutely demolished the Fever's hopes and dreams in 12 minutes of basketball that felt like an eternity. And the worst part? It all started with Jessica Shepard doing something that hadn't been done in WNBA history. 21 minutes and 57 seconds. Remember that number because it's now etched in WNBA history forever. That's how long it took Jessica Shepard to record the fastest triple-double the league has ever seen. She finished with 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists, shooting 10 for 11 from the field. She played all 40 minutes and single-handedly orchestrated the Fever's destruction. Meanwhile, Kayla McBride was putting on an absolute clinic, dropping 29 points and reminding everyone why she's one of the most prolific three-point shooters in league history. The Fever knew they couldn't lose her. Coach Stephanie White specifically mentioned it in the post-game conference. But knowing and executing are 2 completely different things when you're missing half your roster. Here's where the story takes another heartbreaking turn. Odyssey Sims, who had literally just signed a 7-day hardship contract to help this depleted roster, left the game and didn't return. The Fever signed her because they're running out of bodies. They're so desperate for healthy players that they're signing people off the street, and even those players are getting injured. Sims had to tell the coach, "I need a sub," and that was it. Another guard down, another injury to add to the list that never seems to stop growing. But wait, there's a bright spot in this darkness, and her name is Lexie Hull. Career-high 23 points, 18 in the first half alone. She was hunting shots, being aggressive, doing everything the Fever needed. Hull played 37 minutes, and you could see the exhaustion on her face by the end, but she never stopped fighting. This is a player who knew her team needed her to step up, and she delivered in a way that nobody saw coming. And then there's Shea Petty. Remember that name because what she did in her Fever debut was absolutely insane. 3 straight three-pointers to start her career in Indiana. She'd been in one single practice, and she comes out and starts draining threes like she's been playing with this team for years. 10 points in 16 minutes, giving the Fever a glimpse of hope in an otherwise devastating night. The fourth quarter was where things got interesting. Down by double digits, the Fever could have folded. They could have accepted their fate against the best team in the league. But that's not what this group does. They clawed back. Aaliyah Boston went on a personal 4-0 run. The crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was losing their minds. With just over 3 minutes left, they'd cut it to 5 points. Mitchell was doing everything. When she wasn't scoring, she was setting up Boston. When the defense collapsed on her, she found the open player. But Minnesota had an answer for everything. Every time the Fever got close, the Lynx would hit a dagger 3 or get a crucial offensive rebound. Those little things, those tiny moments that separate good teams from championship teams, they all went Minnesota's way. After the game, Mitchell stood at the podium, still processing what her teammates had done for her, and this is where you really understand what kind of person we're talking about. She didn't talk about her 27 points or how she's carrying this team. She talked about loyalty. She talked about friendship. She said these people would be her forever friends after something like that. "They make me feel like I'm important to them," Mitchell said, and you could hear the emotion in her voice. This is a player who's been with the Fever longer than anyone else on that roster. She's seen the franchise at its lowest points. She's been there through all the criticism, all the losses, all the rebuilding, and now, when the team needs her most, she's averaging over 20 points per game and keeping them in the playoff race. But let's talk about what this loss really means. The Fever are now 19-17, sitting in a precarious position in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 2 games to Minnesota in the span of a week, and they have to play them again on Sunday. The Lynx are 29-7, the best record in the entire WNBA. On paper, this shouldn't even be close. Here's the thing though, the Fever were right there with them for most of this game. They had 24 assists on 34 made field goals. They hit 13 three-pointers. 4 players scored in double figures. If you just looked at the stats without knowing the injury situation, you'd think this was a fully healthy team competing at the highest level. Coach Stephanie White summed it up perfectly after the game. She talked about those small walls, those tiny mistakes that great teams capitalize on, the offensive rebounds that turn into second-chance points, the defensive rotations that arrive a split second too late, the turnovers that lead to easy transition baskets. These are the margins that determine winners and losers in professional basketball. But White also said something else that should give Fever fans hope. She called this group special. She talked about the roots they're forming culturally, the competitive spirit they're building. This isn't just about wins and losses anymore. This is about a team that refuses to quit, that keeps fighting even when everything seems stacked against them. The rematch on Sunday presents an interesting opportunity. The Fever know they can compete with Minnesota. They've proven it twice now. But competing and winning are 2 different things, especially when you're this banged up. They'll need Mitchell to continue her MVP caliber play. They'll need Hull to replicate her career night. They'll need Petty to keep hitting those threes. And most importantly, they'll need to fix those third-quarter issues that have been plaguing them all season. What makes this even more complicated is the unknown status of their injured players. Caitlin Clark's groin injury remains a complete mystery. Sophie Cunningham described it as weird, saying Clark isn't in pain all the time, but when it flares up, she's out for weeks. The team is being extra cautious, not wanting any more setbacks. But let's be real here. The Fever need Clark back if they want to make any noise in the playoffs. The cruel irony is that Clark could probably be playing if she wasn't in the WNBA. That's what Cunningham revealed on her podcast. The schedule is so brutal, the games come so fast that there's no time for proper recovery. The average number of days between games is at a 5-year low. Players are dropping like flies across the entire league, but the Fever have been hit harder than anyone. And speaking of Cunningham, her injury might be the most devastating of all. She was shooting 46% from the field and 43% from 3. She was the enforcer, the energy, the player who wasn't afraid to mix it up. When she went down against Connecticut, you could see the air leave the building. She felt the pop immediately. She knew it was bad, and now she's done for the year. Another casualty in a season that's testing this franchise like never before. Let's not forget about Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald either. These aren't just role players. These are crucial pieces of the rotation who were supposed to provide depth and stability. Instead, they're both done for the season, leaving the Fever with a skeleton crew trying to compete against fully loaded rosters. The financial implications of all these injuries are staggering too. The Fever are having to sign hardship contracts, bringing in players on 7-day deals just to have enough bodies for practice. They released Kira Lambert to sign Shea Petty. They'll probably have to make more moves before the season ends. It's a juggling act that no team wants to deal with, especially not during a playoff push. But here's what's remarkable about this situation. Despite everything, despite the injuries, despite the adversity, the Fever are still in the playoff race. They're still fighting. They're still showing up every night and competing. They're not making excuses. They're not feeling sorry for themselves. They're just playing basketball. The support from the fans has been incredible too. That crowd on Friday night was electric. Every time the Fever made a run, you could feel the building shake. These fans have been waiting for something to cheer about, and even in a loss, this team is giving them reasons to believe. Looking ahead, the Fever have 9 games left in the regular season. They'll face Minnesota again on Sunday, then host Seattle before heading out on a critical 3-game West Coast trip. The Sparks, Valkyries, and Mercury await, and those are all winnable games if the Fever can stay healthy. That's a big if at this point. The playoff picture in the Eastern Conference is tight. Every game matters. Every possession matters. The Fever can't afford any more third-quarter collapses like the one against Minnesota. They can't afford to lose focus for even a minute. The margin for error is essentially 0. What this team needs now is for someone, anyone, to get healthy and return. The dream scenario would be Clark coming back for the final stretch, but nobody knows if that's realistic. Her groin injury has been going on for over a month now, and there's still no timetable for her return. The team is being cautious, perhaps overly so, but can you blame them after everything that's happened? In the meantime, Kelsey Mitchell will continue to carry this team on her back. She's proven she can do it. She's proven she belongs in the MVP conversation. But even superheroes need help sometimes. Even the strongest players reach their breaking point. The question is whether Mitchell can keep this up for 9 more games, potentially more if they make the playoffs. The story of the 2025 Indiana Fever will be remembered for many things. The injuries, certainly. The adversity, absolutely. But most of all, it should be remembered for the heart and determination of a group that refused to give up. When historians look back at this season, they'll see a team that faced every possible challenge and kept fighting anyway. That's what makes those MVP shirts so powerful. It wasn't just about recognizing Mitchell's incredible play, it was about unity. It was about showing the world that this team stands together, fights together, and refuses to be broken. In a season where everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, that solidarity might be the most important thing of all. The rematch with Minnesota on Sunday offers a chance for redemption, a chance to prove that Friday's loss was a fluke, that the third-quarter collapse was an aberration. It won't be easy. The Lynx are the best team in the league for a reason. But if there's one thing we've learned about this Fever team, it's that they don't care about the odds. So what happens next? Will Clark return in time to save the season? Can Mitchell maintain her MVP-level production? Will the Fever find a way to overcome these devastating injuries and make a playoff push? The answers are coming, and they're coming fast. 9 games to determine a season. 9 games to prove that all this fight, all this heart, all this determination means something. If you made it this far, you're a true Fever fan and you understand what this team is going through. Make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts on Mitchell's MVP candidacy, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be covering every single game, every single moment of this incredible journey, because this story isn't over, not by a long shot. The Indiana Fever's season might be hanging by a thread, but sometimes that's all you need to weave something magical.